Hi cuties, and welcome to the April stats, reviews, and haul video. Woo! Who's excited? Are you excited? No, you're probably gonna fly off my shoulder now that I've started talking. Is it just the sound of my voice that you hate now? Is that what it is? She hates being on live stream, and as soon as I start filming, that. To kick off this video, we naturally start with the brief reviews of the books that I read last month. I am looking to change it up a little bit coming forward with how I'm doing reviews. But that'll be announced in the next TBR video. So look forward to that. Here's the basic reviews. I did read 22 books this last month, which is pretty on average for me now, I guess. A few of the books I don't own anymore because I did end up selling some to Second & Charles and Pango. So yeah, I think really only one of them is missing. That's probably it. So the first book we read in April was As I Crossed a Bridge of Dreams by Lady Sarashina, translated by Ivan Morris. So this is an extremely old work. It is kind of a combination of a diary, a poetry book, and kind of like chronicalizations of things happening in the Heian period. It's around 1050 is when this was published, but it wasn't like published obviously like this was 1050. So I really did enjoy this. I love in the foreword alone, the translator basically translated this out of spite because he was so angry with how other translators were doing their work, and I'm like, relatable. And also Lady Sarashina was petty as hell, and I love her for it. The way that she writes poetry, it was like, especially to one girl who like used to be friends but then got too high on her horse and then couldn't hang, it like wouldn't hang out anymore unless it was important. I forget which page it is, but it's like, okay, well, come see us when you're not so uppity on yourself. And it was just really, really, really funny to read that. So there are actually some really great little excerpts of her poetry because a lot of court communication was done through poetry. It's a good time. I kind of miss my classical Japanese class and studying it and translating it for myself. So I kind of want to get my hands on her original text to see if Ivan Morris needs to be retranslated. But I did really enjoy this. So I did give this 4 stars. Woo! A classic that I really love. But of course I would love it because it is Japanese literature. So anyway, next up, we read a very highly anticipated release this year and one of the most beautiful books that I own. I think I might classify it as the most beautiful book I own, but that is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Number 1, look at that. Number 2, look at that. Number 3, look at that. Number 4. Foiling in the end pages. Number 5. There's a cat and foiled end pages. Okay, this is probably the most beautiful book that I own. I'm not gonna lie. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. I loved it. I did listen to it as an audiobook, and I love the amount of breaking the fourth wall. Was super fun. Great twists to this. Great cast of characters. I gave this 5 stars. There was a book club that was reading this and a lot of people ended up not liking it, and I'm like, how? This is amazing. I loved this. So I don't know if we read the same book because this was a wild, fun ride and I cannot wait for the sequel. I'm gonna go nuts waiting for it because it's good. The thing about this though, it does read very nicely as a standalone, but there's obviously going to be sequels to this, so this is a fully encased journey. There's not a horrible cliffhanger or anything to it, so if that's something that usually sets you away from starting series, don't worry about it with this one. It's not a terrible cliffhanger. It does complete the story, and I just loved it. I loved all of the characters so much, and yeah, I loved it. 5 star, absolutely great. I'm so glad this was one of my most anticipated releases this year and it lived up to my hype. Next is a book that I did already sell, and that is The Deep by Alma Katsu. This is a kind of paranormal historical fiction featuring around the Titanic and the Britannica? Britannia? Another ship that sank. I wasn't into this one as much as I wanted to be. I did give it 3 stars. I wanted it to lean more into paranormal than it did. Like, it did have a lot of paranormal elements, but a lot of it was spent with just very unlikable characters doing things that I was just like, I hate you. So I just really didn't connect with a lot of the characters. The main character that we dealt with is kind of this maid, and I really just ended up not liking her. And I get that there was part of this paranormal aspect that was affecting her in a way, but it's just, I didn't like it. It wasn't my favorite. I was disappointed by it, so I did end up selling that one, unfortunately. So, oh well. And then we moved on to The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. Abdullah, I'm so sorry. I don't actually know where you put the emphasis in this last name, but this was really fun. This was a release last year. I did really enjoy this, so I did give this one 4 stars. Yes, 4 stars for this one. It was a little different than what I thought it was going to be, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, and in this case it was good. I really liked, again, the characters. I liked the stakes, and my mother is calling me. I don't know where we were at because my mom called, but I did really enjoy Stardust Thief. It's super fun. I am very excited for the next book to come out. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. Oh, I just saw that there's actually kind of illustrations and stuff. Ooh, that's cool. Again, listen to it via audiobook, and it's fun, and I like it. The end. What a great review. I'm so good at these now. Next up, we finished a series. Holy buckets. Granted, it's only a duology, but we finished it, and that is Afterglow by Phil Stamper. This is the sequel to Golden Boys, and I gave this one 4. However, it's a lower 4 than other 4s I give. It's not quite a 3.5. I still really enjoyed it. I do love these characters. The thing is, it kind of undid a lot of what we got in Golden Boys. And a lot of the relationships that got established were kind of torn apart, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. It was kind of like the sad ever after, but it was still like uplifting in the end because there was still some good stuff that was happening. But I don't necessarily think that this book was necessary for it. I think Golden Boys could have just been fine on its own and let us relish in kind of this happy ever after stuff. And there was acknowledgments in the first book about a toxic relationship, and that toxic relationship kind of comes back into play. That, granted, both characters have grown since then, but I wasn't a fan of how it kind of shifted a lot of the growth that we had in the first book. So I still, again, really did enjoy this. I think there's a lot of really good messages in in both these books and in this one that I think are very important, which is why it got a higher rating. But my overall enjoyment did kind of go below. I liked Golden Boys more than I liked Afterglow. Then this month, so almost my entire TBR this last month was audiobook, so I had a lot of options for physical reads. So I was doing a lot of random physical reads, and one of them was doing an indie and a graphic novel that I've owned for a bit, and that is Twilight Custard by Josh Wilson and William Moule. I don't know if that's Muljo or Mulho. I'm not entirely sure, but this is kind of a aliens and cowboys situation. It was fine. I did give it, I mean, it wasn't great. I gave it 2.5. I always want more out of graphic novels, and I really didn't like the ending. I really didn't like our gruff main character. His whole persona is, woe is me, the women I love is dead, and like not really explaining a lot of what was happening in the present with this, or like why he bothered to take on this alien robot thing he found. I just felt it lacked. It really lacked for me. But yeah, it is an indie. Other people might enjoy this, but it's definitely not. It had tropes in it that I'm just I'm not a fan of. Next up, we listened to Outrun the Moon by Stacey Lee. This is a historical fiction dealing with the big earthquake in San Francisco back in, when was this? 1906. I knew that. But it does lack actually a lot of the earthquake. I thought we were going to deal with the earthquake a lot more, but the bulk of this book is our main character trying to get into this ladies' school so that she can learn things and be an independent businesswoman kind of stuff. And the bulk of it was this, and then we got the earthquake and a little bit of aftermath. So I was expecting a lot more of the earthquake and the aftermath of that than what we got in here. I still enjoyed it. I did give this one 3.5 stars. We did know already initially, like, there were some characters that were going to die, and that is really tragic for who died and stuff, but I was just expecting a lot more of what was going on with the earthquake, the fires and everything, a little bit more than what we got, so it did knock it down a little bit. I did like the ending. I wasn't happy with how certain characters were treating in the beginning and then how they came about by the end, but yeah, if you like historical fiction and stuff, I do recommend this. I think this is my first Stacey Lee, but she has a bunch of books out. I have a few on my shelf, and I am excited to continue reading more of her stuff. Next up, we have Icebreaker by A.L. Graziadi. Graziade? Oh gosh, I forgot it. It was pronounced in the audiobook and I forgot how to pronounce it. But this is a contemporary male-male romance dealing with hockey, which, not my thing, but I did give this book 4.5 stars. I thought it did a really good job with kind of the enemies to lovers trope. Enemies to friends to lovers trope. I think that's really where it's shown. I knocked it down a half star because it is so short, and so the timeline goes a little bit too quickly for my personal taste in terms of like romance and growth of that romance. But I did really like it. I loved how it really talked about the toxicity especially in hockey towards LGBT athletes and that in general in sports, but in particular in hockey. I did really enjoy that. I wished there had been a conversation, and that's really why I got knocked down a half star, because in the very beginning of this book, this character accuses this character of something, and I wanted them to talk about that and to better understand each other through that, because it also deals a lot with mental health rap, because there is severe anxiety and depression going on with this character, and I did love the exploration of that and talking of that conversation that did happen. So I would have liked if these two characters actually talked about it on page more than what we. I'm having all the technical difficulties today, let me tell you. So anyway, yes, I super enjoyed this. This was awesome, and I do recommend. Next up, we listened to The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This is kind of an own voices, I mean, it is an own voices, somewhat biographical, but also fictional, of the author's experience in self-expression. This is written, it says it's written in verse. When you listen to it though, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's verse, except for certain parts of it do. But it's his experience in being not only gay, but also going into the drag scene. And I did enjoy this a lot. Again, it has a lot of really great moments in it that are like, ooh, there's a couple particular lines that just hit so hard. So I did give this book 5 stars. It is fantastic. It is a very quick read because it is written in verse. So it's only like a 4-hour audiobook, so you can get through it pretty quickly if you're needing that for your own TBR. It's great to like listen to it and read along so that you can see how the verses are set up, like the stylization of the poetry aspect of this. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and it hit hard, and highly recommend. I don't have anything else to say about it other than you should read it too. So we read a hefty book, but I was happy to find an audiobook for this, and that is The Child Thief by Brom. Brom is the man who wrote the book and also is a big artist. There is art like within all of this. I will say though, like way Peter, because it's a Peter Pan retelling, the way Peter's described, this is not what Peter looks like in this book, okay? When he wearing this corset, I don't know. This was very horrific. I gave this one 4.5. I did give it 4.5. It had a lot of stuff that is not my taste, but I did appreciate the visual aspect of it. I appreciated just the means of the prose and the overall horrificness of Never Never Land in this situation, and kind of turning Peter both into villain and hero at the same time was very interesting, especially with how this book ends. I did not expect it. It definitely gave me a lot of twists and turns. I loved the lore behind how Never Never exists, and I thought it was very, very interesting. It was a very different take on Peter Pan, because I've read other Peter Pan stories and retellings where Peter is kind of a villain, but this did a good job making him very gray, which is something I do appreciate in villains, is making them very gray. So I did like this a lot more than I thought I would, to be honest. So, and man, this book is heavy. So I don't recommend physically reading it, just unless you're trying to like do some weight training. Then yeah, yes, read it physically. The pages are just very thick pages, and the art alone are very, very thing into this. There was a couple moments where I was just like, especially when it deals with like girl characters in horror, I'm just like, do we need to do that? Was that necessary? I don't think it was, but you know, that's the aestheticism of horror in general and horror fantasy. So then we read another historical fiction. As you might remember, the month of April was really heavily historical fiction, but we read Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, which is also a 23 of 2023, and this is a sort of Holocaust story in terms of people in Germany trying to escape. And there's a very diverse group of people, which is what I liked seeing when I do read historical fiction from this time period, because I do think the market is oversaturated with it. I like seeing other perspectives rather than just like the usual storyline that you see. All those stories are still very important. There's more going on than just one thing in World War II, and a lot with historical fiction. I mean, it's not one thing that usually historical fiction is. Usually either the soldier stories or it is a Holocaust story. And this one dealt with people who were from various backgrounds that were escaping. So we had a girl who was Polish trying to escape. We had a girl who was she Lithuanian? I think she was Lithuanian. We even had, you know, a kind of Nazi soldier and his perspective, and his that was a creepy character, and a lot of variety with the characters. There's multiple POVs in this, and so that's what I really appreciate in this, is seeing all these different aspects of people knowing that what is happening is wrong, and it's, you know, sometimes it's their own people and they're like, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this, and other people who are wholeheartedly supporting what's going on, and just seeing the kind of mentality behind it was very interesting to this. And Ruta Sepetys, I think, does an excellent job of research. There's a lot of good historical notes in this. I read 2 Ruta Sepetys this month, by the way, so this is one that I've had forever, so I'm glad I did finally get to this one. I did give this 5 stars. Highly recommend. I do highly recommend the audiobook as well, because it is a full cast that does it, and it just makes the Alfred, that character, it makes him so much more creepy and terrifying. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that. Next up is a book that I did already sell, and that is The Atlas Paradox. I sold this one on Pango. I'm not an Atlas 6 girl. I tried the first book and I was like, okay, it has interesting stuff. I will go on enough to read the sequel. And then I read the sequel. The sequel, in my opinion, was worse. I did end up giving this one 2 stars. I really hate all the characters in this. It really didn't make any sense. Like, it felt like it was really grasping at straws, whereas the first book, I really felt like they were working through the science and the magic of the dark academia setting, and this one, it just felt like there were too many different things going on that none of it actually knitted together, and it was just very confusing. And in particular, there's just like the overuse of sex in it bothers me, like unnecessary. There's one character in particular whose whole thing is basically just using people and through sex to get her way and to like get into their minds because she is a telepath, and I just really dislike that character a lot. I really hated listening to the voice actress too for it, because the voice actress made every single line sound like a pickup line or sound like she was like a sexual innuendo. Even when she wasn't talking, it was just like every line had to be this very sexy way of talking, and it bothered me because it just ended up not giving that character any dimension that the character should have had. You know, like it just, yeah, it fell flat. And like the characters that I somewhat enjoyed in the last book, I just ended up not enjoying in this one. And yeah, I just really, I don't like it. I don't like the Atlas 6 and I don't like the Atlas Paradox, and I will not be continuing for the third book that's apparently coming out this year, I think, or next, I don't know. It's coming out, but I'm not going to read it. I don't care enough. Sorry to all you Atlas stans out there. I'm not part of the crowd anymore. Next up, I went on to read the oldest book that I own on my shelf. Not as in oldest in publication, as in this is the book I have owned the absolute longest on my shelf from 2016. That's as far as we go back. I have one more book from 2016 on my shelf, and that's it. I've unhauled or read them. But that is This Savage Song by V.E. Schwab, or Victoria Schwab. She goes by Victoria Schwab in her YA, I think. It's always confusing, like, which name do you go by in which situation? But right now she's Victoria Schwab. And this is a very interesting book. I gave this one 3.5. It's not one of my favorites of V.E. Schwab. I was a little confused by the world building alone, but I did end up liking it. I ended up liking the characters a lot, the main two characters. I wasn't entirely certain how the music really, I thought the music was gonna have a lot bigger impact on everything, and it just didn't feel like it was utilized enough to be called This Savage Song, for one. But I did think it was interesting. I will be reading the sequel and finishing this duology, which is also a book I've owned for forever. But finally, we finally read This Savage Song, and now I feel okay about doing a puzzle that I have that is a Monsters of Verity song. Yeah, it was fine. It was better than just like a regular 3, because it had a lot of good moments that I was like, ooh, I like that. But otherwise it did kind of lose me a little bit. For me, some of Victoria Schwab's like older works are not for me, and I like a lot of her newer stuff. I don't know. We got through The Annoying One. We got through Great Expectations, and my expectations were low, and rightly so, because I really didn't like this. I just don't like Dickens's writing. I really am not into it. I gave it 2 stars again. I just did not care. I didn't care. I hated it. I hated it. I just don't like it. I don't like how he writes. It's so dry. I have nothing else to say about it. It's just dry. I don't like it. The adaptation apparently is better, but that's because they took a lot of liberties and didn't include stuff from this book and added their own things, so it's just so dry. But it's done, and that's all the Dickens on my shelf. I am done with Dickens. We're done. Moving on to another 5-star read by Ruta Sepetys, and that is I Must Betray You. This is a historical fiction, but it's only from like the 80s, of a very important part of history that I was completely unaware of. Thank you, American education system. Apparently this is like 1989, so I was 2 years old. But this involves the horrible dictatorship and genocide within Romania, and it is just not a piece of history that I think gets broadcast a lot, because the leaders at the time, the dictator who was running everything was like chummy with a lot of other world leaders and faking that everything was fine in Romania when he was literally just like killing his own people. Everyone was super paranoid with each other. There were secret, you know, snitches everywhere. And that's kind of where this story is the main character unfortunately gets caught and gets forced into being an informer on people. And so everyone is always suspicious of everyone and like pointing fingers, and just the paranoia is so palpable in this. I do wish that there had been a little like better reconciliation between two characters, because when you think about it, no one had a choice in any of this. And so blaming another informer for doing this thing is like, what choice do you have in that situation? If you want to stay alive and keep your family alive, like I would, especially because he did like the same thing. So I felt that was a little hypocritical, but accurate. That's just how it works in this situation. And this is very informative. There's a really great historical note and author's note in this one. So definitely check this book out. I think this is her newest release. And I just highly, 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 highly recommend it. Told me about a situation that, like, that's the thing with historical fiction, is it's not always like 100% accurate, because it is fiction, because it's an interpretation of, you know, a life of somebody who may or may not have existed. I don't actually remember if this character was a real character or if it was a made-up character, but in the situation of this time. And so it makes me want to go online and then start doing my own research and learning about stories. She gave some great links as well to other works that are nonfiction about this. So that's what I also really appreciate in Ruta Speedy's work, is she gives you the resources to go look for the actual accounts of what happened. So yes, highly recommend. All right, then we have a non-physical copy, because I was gifted an e-arc of Tycho's newest release called One Pale Reflection. I will be doing a live show, or probably by the time you see this video, that live show has already happened, so I will link it. But One Pale Reflection is releasing. The Kickstarter starts on May 9th, so it's probably already started by the time you see this video. This is a kind of YA, and I'm going to say very lower YA, like borderline middle grade, just based on age of characters and style. It's not like the current everyday like YA that I normally read, which is normally characters that were in their upper teens. This has a couple characters who are like 12 and 16, I think is what Letty's age is. But it reads a little bit younger, like old school YA. It is an isekai, so it's this otherworld fantasy, and very, very interesting. It had some really good twists in it. It was very, very fun, and you can see more about this review when we talk with Tycho on the live stream. And go check out the Kickstarter, because I think it is still live by the time this video comes out. Hopefully this video isn't horribly delayed. Woo! Next up, I pulled a book off the shelf. I did, again, doing my physical reads, I was just like, I will read whatever and spin wheels and stuff. And we ended up reading Imagining Anne, the Ellen Montgomery's Island Scrapbooks by Elizabeth Rollins Epperly. So this is an inside look at some scrapbooks that Ellen Montgomery kept during her life. It's the red scrapbook and the blue scrapbook. And they're very interesting looks into her life. Like, where is the biopic about Ellen Montgomery? Because I would love to see that. I did really enjoy this. I did give it 4 stars. I kind of wanted a bit more, because sometimes when you look at the scrapbook pages, because it has stuff that's not just scrapbook pages, it'll go into a little bit of detail, but I would have really liked it if the tiny news articles or the notes could have been transcribed, so that we could have actually read more of what's actually written on that. Instead of just saying, oh, this is a note about this. I'm like, but I want to see the words. What were the actual words? And some of the news articles are just such small print that you don't get to really, I mean, you could read it, but I'm like, that would have been an effort, and it would have strained my eyes a whole lot. So that's my one kind of like gripe with this, is I wanted a little bit more in depth about the stuff in the scrapbooks, especially the articles, the letters, the notes and things. But I enjoyed this. Ellen Montgomery, like, girl was a player. Oh, this girl, just, whoa, what a love life. What a love life indeed. Can't relate. Next one is strictly an audiobook only. There is no physical copy of that. It is a new release, and that is Dark One Forgotten by Brandon Sanderson and Dan Wells. I did give this one 4 stars as well. It is mostly a mystery with a teeny weeny bit of sci-fi fantasy elements to it that I found very intriguing. So I listen to audiobooks at twice the speed, but this one is a little hard to do because it is a full cast of characters as well. It's like a full-on radio show kind of thing. And I wasn't a huge fan of like our two best friend characters. They did a lot of laughing, and so at double the speed it's like and it just like hurt my ears, and it was really weird that way. But you couldn't slow it down because then it would be too slow in the regular talking parts of it. I did think it was a really interesting twist, but it did lack like explanation of what was actually happening. It did lack that. So I don't know if this is actually a full like series that's going to be started off of this. It has it's a full standalone right now, but it feels like this could be like an audio series that these authors are doing. It's definitely different than what I've read elsewhere from Brando Sando and stuff. I've never read anything by Dan Wells because he does, actually both of them kind of do the thing where their name is bigger than the title on a lot of books now. Yeah, well, Brandon doesn't do it as much. I don't think any of the Skyward series, his name is bigger than the actual title, but Dan Wells definitely does, which is why I'm always like put off by reading any of his stuff. So there's that. Next up, I finished another duology, and that was Cursed by Marissa Meyer. This is the sequel to Gilded, which is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, and we finally really got the essence of being Rumpelstiltskin and the Rumpelstiltskin lore in this one. I did only give it 4 stars, so I liked Gilded a little bit more than I liked Cursed, I will say. Granted, I also think my brain was in a slump of reading audiobooks, so I don't think I was connecting as much in general to any audiobook. I still really love this. I still really love these characters, and I still love Marissa Meyer's writing. I just didn't, it took me a bit to really get into this, and I do think that was just that was a dumb brain thing here. But yeah, really love it. I love this duology. It's so pretty. I'm glad I finally have my fancy copy. It took forever for this to get here. It didn't get here till this year when this book did come out last year, but Fairy Loot's been delayed on getting their special editions out because I did pre-order this last year as a special because now it matches and I love it. I did wish, here's my one other gripe, is we didn't get to savor the happy ending. I wanted to savor it. We didn't get to savor it. Next up is a book I read in a day during my bookstore crawl, and that was The Last Tale of the Flower by Roshni Chokshi. Again, another beautiful edition. Beautiful edition. Did I mention it's a beautiful edition? Not as pretty as Amina. Not as pretty. But this is another adult Fairy Loot, and here's the thing. I did give this one 4.5. Which actually I'm kind of debating changing because like I definitely liked Cursed more than this one. But the main female protagonist, well, is she the main? The main person that this story kind of revolves around. She's not a POV, but her name is Indigo Maxwell Castaneda, and she marries this guy, and read by Steve West, which is also why this book got more points because Steve West was reading it. But then there's also the character of Azure, who is the dual POV. And Azure's gone missing. And there's an agreement between bride and bridegroom about like, you can't look into my past at all. We're just going to move forward from here. But then she gets called home because her aunt is dying basically, and she's going to go help. So secrets start unraveling about her and her secrets and stuff. It had a very good twist. I did predict the twist, but the character of Indigo, I just hated. I hated her so much. And that's why I was really happy about the ending and how this one turns out. But the flashbacks, because it does with the timeline, so it goes, the current stuff is all the bridegroom, and the stuff in the past is all from Azure's perspective and figuring out what happened to Azure. But I just really hated Indigo. The things that Indigo did, I absolutely despised her for it. So that's why we got just a very unlikable character. And I just like, I hate you so much. But overall, this was very engrossing. Roshni Chokshi's prose is always fantastic to me. So yeah. It's very weird. It's an interesting one. It's got a little bit of that magical realism aspect to it. But yeah, there you go. Cool. I love how I'm spending so much time talking about everything here. All right, next up, we have Katzenjammer by Francesca Zappia. This is Francesca Zappia's newest release that I did get to pre-order last year, but I didn't get to it, but I'm glad I did get to it this one. It's actually a very quick audiobook. It's only like 5 hours long, but it still took me a while to get through because I ended up having to not listen to the audiobook. I had to physically read this one. I started listening to audio and I just couldn't, my brain, like I said, I was losing brain power for audiobooks last month, so I had to physically read this one. But also there's art and stuff inside, so I did get a better appreciation reading this one physically. It's super weird. Like, it's super weird, and the twist ending, because it's a bunch of students who are basically trapped in their school, and some of them are changed and some of them are not. And like, our main character here is changed because this is not a mask, this is her face, and she no longer has eyes. It's just gaping holes, but she can still see and stuff. It's very strange, okay? This is like uber magical realism horror is what this book is. It's so weird, but I gave it 5 stars because it's so weird. And it was like the twist ending. I'm still unsettled by the twist ending and knowing what happened and why this was going on. And I had a feeling going in, like, oh, not going in, but as you were reading the book, about like, what's the reason for this? Because you have the idea that it's going to be something along those lines, but we did get the reasons for it. And it's I don't know, some people I think may take it as, oh, this is just for shock value, but I do think Francesca Zappia was actually making a point here that if you don't enjoy it, I think maybe it's a missed point. Although, you know, but its reviews are subjective. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I thought Zappia was making a very good point, and it was very timely point about certain things. I don't want to spoil it for you because I do recommend. I really like Francesca Zappia. She's one of my favorite authors. I will read anything by her. And lastly, we read another 23 of 2023, and that was Alanna, the first adventure in the first book of the Song of the Lioness. I know it's a horse on it, but it is Song of the Lioness. This was put on my 23 of 2023 by Hala, who loves Tamora Pierce. This is my very first foray into reading Tamora Pierce, and I just gotta say, I understand so much more about Hala now from reading this book. Like, I get it. I get why Hala likes certain tropes and things and certain, like, styles of writing. Like, that makes so much more sense to me now that I've read this. I did enjoy it. I did give it only 3 stars because I wanted more out of it. It was just kind of an okay read. I forget when this was first published, but I think it's the 80s or the 90s. It's an older one. It's at a time where I was not reading. 1983 is when this baby came out, so that was not my generation of books that I was reading when I was a kid. I didn't read a whole lot as a kid, to be honest. I didn't become a massive reader until my adulthood years, but I did enjoy it. It had a lot of fun moments. It did have some tropes. Alanna is a little bit of a not like other girls character, which is not a trope that I like, but she's not like horrendously offensive of it. She's not a full-on pick-me girl, but I kind of actually would have loved this to be a dual POV between Alanna and her twin. I think that would have made it a higher rating for me to see both sides, because they kind of do a switcheroony, not switcheroony, but like she pretends to be a boy twin instead of his girl twin. And I would have liked to see on his ass, because he was off learning magic and stuff as a sorcerer. And I'm like, oh, I want to see that. And she's training to be a knight and things. So I would have liked a dual POV in this. But I do really like this. I will continue with the series. So yeah, Paula, there you go. I will continue as soon as I get my hands on the next books. If somebody wants to send me them, go ahead. Cool. But those are the books that we read in April. Sorry, the review portion of this definitely took longer than I intended it to. But we're going to move on to the stats. April is this lovely bluish, tealy blue color, and then March last month. For comparison, you can see I did read less this month than I did last month, but last month was the insane month. So we read 22 books, as I said before, which totaled into 8,026 pages and 187 hours listened via audiobook. 2 of those books were indies, 4 of them were own voices, and then I started 4 series, I continued 1, and completed 2, which is the 2 duologies we talked about. Woohoo! On average page count per book was 364.82 pages, but pages per day I was reading about 267.53, and that does include audiobooks, just in case anyone was curious about that. I don't divvy it up this way. Average hours I was listening was 11.69, and it took me on average exactly 3 days to finish books. Hey. And my average rating was higher than last month with 3.73. We did read 16 audiobooks, 1 ebook, 3 paperbacks, and 2 hardcovers. So audiobooks really are how I get through my TBRs, to be real. So that's why they definitely count as reading. So if any of y'all out there think audiobooks don't count, get off my page. Cool. With my non-physical acquisitions, we had 12 that I got out of my Libby app, which is my library app, 3 off of Scribd, 1 off of Audible, which I believe was Stardust Thief because I had a credit, and then 1 author PDF, which was One Pale Reflection. We did an even split though between adult and young adult. We did 11 adult and 11 young adult. No middle grade, but completely even Steven split. In the genre breakdown, the historical fiction actually won out with 4 historical fictions, with classics right behind at 3, as well as fantasy adventure, and no, fantasy romance was 2. That's usually my biggest one, is fantasy romance, but we had a slightly different pie chart this month. In ratings, 4 again. 4 tends to be like my baseline. Like if I enjoy a book and have a good time, it's gonna get a 4. We did have, you know, we had 2. Why is it not fully reading? I think I had 2 5 stars, didn't I? I don't know why it's reading that. Something's wrong. Something's wrong in my formula, but I'm fairly certain. Let me go back here. Yeah, we had a bunch. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5 stars. Oh wait, I know what it's reading. I see what it's reading. I see what it's reading. Oh my God, where did my thing go? There it is. It's not reading the right row. It's supposed to be W. Oh gosh. Thought I checked this beforehand. There it goes. Oh my God, is everybody wrong? Hold on. W, 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 okay. Is it just that one that was wrong? Yeah, okay, there we go. There we go. Sorry, momentary fixing. So in average ratings, we finally got more 5 stars. So we had 5 5 stars, 6 4 stars. 4 star is where I tend to land overall. If I just really enjoy a book, it's 4 stars. If I enjoy the book even and it's just phenomenal, then it's 5. But my 3s are kind of like, it was okay, but not for me. That's kind of how I rate things. We did have, you know, the 1 star. We had some 2s and all that jazz, but on average, we had more 4s and higher. We had higher ratings. Like this is 5, 4.5, and 4. More than half the books were very high rated this month. I did read 20 that were novels, 1 graphic novel, and 1 novella this month. We had 3 debut authors, 8 that were new to me, and 11 repeats. So it's also kind of an even split between brand new and repeats. In representation, we did have 5 with main characters that were queer in some way, 2 with side characters, and 12 that had no queer characters, as well as disability had 15 that didn't have any. But we did have 5 with disabilities as main characters and 2 as side characters. So a little bit, I don't know if it was around the same. Almost the same as last month with representation wise for that. Interesting. With author genders, we did read predominantly women writers. With 14, 6 were men, 1 non-binary, and 1 of a trans man. So we got a little bit more skewed to what I normally read. There's been a few months where I've just read a lot of dude writers, and that's been very strange for me. With character genders though, almost completely even. We had 8 that were predominantly just women, 7 that were predominantly men, and 7 that were both men and women POVs. They shared the POVs in the book, but nobody of other minorities were really represented in POVs this time round. With nationalities, again, predominantly American. That's how it be. I don't know why this one's red, whereas this one's blue. That's weird. We did have 2 British authors, 1 Canadian, 1 Chinese, 1 Japanese, and that was our split that way. With our settings, we did have 8 set in the United States, 4 set in England, 2 kind of Saudi Arabia. I wasn't sure where to classify like Amina because it's mostly in the ocean, so didn't know where to put that. But I think most of the land time and then the beginning, I think it is Saudi Arabia that we're in. But yeah, then we had 1 in Canada, 1 in Ireland, 1 in Romania, 5 in fictional lands, and 1 in Germany. With publishers, HarperCollins actually won this round with 6, with Penguin right behind it with 5. 4 from Macmillan, only 1 from Simon & Schuster, so Simon & Schuster slowly coming in. And only 1 from Hachette this month. 1 self-published, 3 were from small presses, and 1 Papal Mill Press, which is the classic. With publication years, again, predominantly 2022. And then 5 from 2023, nobody from 2021, 1 from 2020, and then 5 between 2015 and 2019. We had 1 from 2002, 2009, 1 from the 80s, which was Alanna, and then of course our lovely Great Expectations from the 1800s. Of the acquisition years, I actually mostly got the books this year. 9 of them were acquisitions this year. 8 of them were acquisitions last year. 1 from 2021, 2 from 2020, 1 from 2019, and the 1 from 2016. Where I got them from, we did have a kind of an even split this month between Fairy Loot, Book Outlet, and Pango. Each of them were 4. So I read a lot of my Fairy Loot copies. I'm very proud of myself for that. Only 1 of them was from Second and Charles, 2 of them were from Amazon, 1 of them was gifted, 1 of them was direct from the author, 1 from Owl Crate, 1 from a small bookstore, 1 from a convention. We had a lot of variety in this one, and in the cost of bread books, we totaled $290.35, which brings an average to $13.20, so a little bit more of an expensive month this year in the land of stats. And there we go. That's the end of the stats. Woo, 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 woo. Cool. And now we're gonna go over to another queue, telling you all the books that I did acquire in April. It's a lot, but I'm on a book buying ban this month, so I went a little bit ham last month. So over to that queue. Hello everybody, welcome to the haul portion of today's video. I don't know where it is in the video, but thanks other queue for bringing us over to this side where I shamelessly show you every book I have acquired over this month without telling you the prices, because that would be very sad. All right, kicking us off with books I most recently purchased, because that's how the pile lines up. We have Sing Me Forgotten by Jessica S. Olsen, a fantasy romance. The next 3 are all fantasy romances. Then we actually got the sequel to a book that I read earlier this year, and that is A Queen of Gilded Horns by Amanda Joy. This is the sequel to A River of Royal Blood. It has the better cover, not the one with the weird chin thing that makes me irrationally upset. Cool, we can finish that in theory. Then we have a new release. And part of the Twisted Tales, we have a copy of When You Wish Upon a Star by Elizabeth Lim. And I'm very happy that it's by Elizabeth Lim, because I love Elizabeth Lim, and now this is the only Elizabeth Lim book on my shelf that I have not read yet. Moving on, you may have seen this. I don't know if the bookstore crawl video came out first or not, but if it has, then you've already seen the next group. But these were all acquired during the bookstore crawl. We have The Witch King by H.E. Edgman, which is by a trans author and has a trans main character. Urban fantasy. Looks pretty dope if it would focus. Okay, there we go. We also have Neil Gaiman's The Ocean at the End of the Lane. It's kind of a battered copy, but it'll do. We have a book, that lovely lady at Gallagher Books with the cute dog Misty, that I will eventually steal one day. We have Victorian Lady Travelers, which just seems super fun. And I keep thinking she's holding a really long gun, but it's a train. She's holding a train. Okay. Then one of my favorite indie writers has their newest release out, and I got to go see them for Independent Bookstore Day. They were a guest of honor over at Firehouse Books, and that is Odds Against, which is the 7th book in the Aces High Jokers Wild series. I still have book 4, 5, and 6 to read, but at least I will have this when the time comes. If you saw that video, I don't know if that video is up, then you would have seen my frustration with this at Black and Red. But I did find the Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Promise part 1 and part 3. There was no part 2. I will eventually get that, but I will not read these until I have all 3, because they're going to be very fast reads. And to get 3 books, boom, boom, boom. And then I also realized I'm an idiot. I mean, that's not news to anyone. But while I was at Mutiny Information Cafe, I saw this, Sailor V by Naoko Takeuchi, and didn't realize it's volume 2. So I need to find volume 1. But I'm dumb, but it's a Sailor Moon comic, obviously. Sailor Moon manga, but it's Sailor V. Sailor V, watashi ga watashi no iru kagiri. Sorry, we're fine. Okay, moving on. We also have another new release, and that is Stars and Smoke by Marie Lu. This is now my only Marie Lu that I need to read, because I've read all of her other work. This is kind of a contemporary mystery pop star thing. Very different than what she normally writes. So I thought it was gonna be like a cool sci-fi when I first heard about it, but it's not. It's like a weird, maybe assassin or bodyguard situation. I don't know. We'll find out when we read it. And then we have Rumo and His Miraculous Adventures by Walter Moers. This is the 3rd book. They're not all, I think they're all standalone like companions, but he is the author of the 13.5 Lives of Captain Blue Bear, which is on the shelf. And I have it in paperback, but I found this in hardcover, and all of them are chonkies, but they've got beautiful like illustrations and stuff throughout. So should be a fun time. Then we have a Robin Hobb, not the one everybody wants to talk about, but we have Dragon Keeper, which is volume 1 of the Rain Wilds Chronicles. But there's a dragon and it's Robin Hobb, and it's a 1st edition, so yeah. Then we have one of the most beautiful books, and probably one of the most expensive books on the shelf. I did not spend a lot of money on it. I looked up what the actual retail price was, and it says it's $89.90 for the retail price, because it's from Easton Prints or Easton Publishing. But that is a copy of Faust, which is one of my favorite operas, for one. But it's look, it's the shine. You can see yourself in that. But Faust is one of my favorite plays, with Mephistopheles, which is just a really fun name to say, and I might be featuring Mephistopheles in book 2 of His Macaque, so I was super excited to find Faust. Also a weird character to play in Guilty Gear, if you've ever played that. All right, then I won a Goodreads giveaway months ago. It finally showed up, but that is a rule book for Restless Rogues, which is the sequel to the Gentleman's Book of Vices, which Lena actually bought for me for Quizmith. I haven't read it yet, but now I have the sequel because I won the giveaway. This is an ARC, it's an uncorrected proof of it, so we'll see how much of a red pen I take to it, but there it is. And then we also have another new release, that is When You Wish Upon a Lantern by Gloria Chow. And this is a contemporary romance. It looks super cute. And another new release. We have Seven Faceless Saints by M.K. Lobb. This is a fancy, I think, is this Fairy Loot? Yes, this is Fairy Loot edition. It's got a fancy, it's got, look at that stencil. Oh, can it focus on it? Focus on it. Focus on this part. There you go. Look at that. That cool illustration on the spine. Now focus back on me. Cool. And it also's got some nice indie pages, which I think this is a lovers, yeah, this is a lovers to enemies story, which sounds super fun. And then it has the super fun stuff there, but I bought that off of somebody on Facebook. Thanks, person on Facebook. Then we have another sequel to a book that I read earlier this year, which was Zebulon Finch. Here is Zebulon Finch, Empire Decayed. At the Edge of Empire is the first one. Empire Decayed. That's a good paperback. That's what, when I want a paperback, I want to be able to slap and reverberate. That would hurt. If it hits you, it hurts. Then, in quick succession, because these three are now out of order, more continuing. I was really focused on trying to gather more of these series and things that I don't own so that I can continue and finish series. But one of the biggest series on my shelves right now is The Ancient Magus Bride. And so we have volumes 2, 3, and 4, so I can at least continue that much of them. Hopefully, I mean, there's so many. There's so many volumes. This is why I don't read manga anymore. There's too many. Next up, we have Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. I've heard actually some really good things about this. This is a Book of the Month copy. Did not get it through Book of the Month. Good old Pango. All right, but this one we got through Book of the Month because Lena's awesome and gives me free Book of the Month when she doesn't want any. So I got Camp Zero by Michelle Min Sterling. This is a kind of, it's an indigenous book, dystopia, post-apocalyptic, I can't remember now, but it's been on the list. But this is a brand new release, and I'm very excited to read it. Thank you, Lena! Thank you, Lena! You're welcome! Speaking of Lena, Lena also for Christmas last year bought me A Mirror Mended. And so I didn't have the first book, but now I have the first book, and that's A Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. It's teeny tiny baby novellas, and now I can read them both. Yay! That was not Lena's fault that she didn't know that it was a sequel. I was a dum-dum and only put the sequel on my wish list, so.
I was like, how did I screw it up?
That's my fault, not Lena's fault. Speaking of getting books that, because I keep accidentally buying the second books, as you already noted with Sailor V for there, I also got The League of Gentlewomen Witches that I didn't realize was a sequel of The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. Now I have the first book, and I can justify having the second one. Then we have another brand new release this year, and that is Spice Road. Sorry, I have to say it like that. By Maya Ibrahim. I can't say the word spice without doing the Dune spice thing. It's just, I can't. It doesn't happen. But yes, new release. Look at it's beautiful. I actually like this one.
Spice must flow.
They have the fancy Fairy Loot and stuff editions of them. I don't actually like those covers as much as I like this one. I think it's just the way that the magic is on her hand. It looks so much more eye-catching to me, and I'm just like, yes. And normally I'm not a put a face on the cover kind of girl, but it works. Then we went to convention and I bought some. So these next two are by the same author of Nathan Harms, and he has Good Bird, which I had to do. This is kind of a magical realism literary short story. He has a bunch of these. I was trying to read it while I was at the convention, but it didn't happen. And then we also have his middle grade of Zed and Zia, The World of Giants. This is a middle grade series. It has art and stuff in it as well. Should be a super quick, fun read. I don't get through videos without talking about Tycho, it seems, at this point. But Tycho was so nice to swap out my box set for his box set of Brady Von Althuis. So now I have the entire Brady Von Althuis series, and I can finish it, and I'm very excited about it. So the next book that I gotta read is Brady Von Althuis and the Gullible Ghost Hunter. So it's about me. Thank you, Tycho. On to the other pile. We've gone through pile one. Next up, we have Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. This is also a brand new release. I got this because my sister wanted one for her birthday, which was this month, and so I was like, well, I might as well get myself one too. But it's very, very short, tiny, tiny baby book. And then one of the first pre-order that I won during the Easter egg hunt has arrived, and that is The Cleaving by Juliet E. McKenna for Women for Destinies, the future of King Arthur's Albion. But it's the late, look at the beautiful illustrations. It's just so pretty. It's so pretty. Yay, first pre-order. The second one should be coming in 9 days. Next up, we got another fancy copy. We have Twin Crowns. Look at the fancy. Look at the fancy. It's so pretty. But this is by Catherine Weber. I believe this was like an add-on, like a special. Oh, we got another book for Fairy Loot's YA subscription. I got this off Pango. But, you know, fancy copies. This book I am so excited about. I have been searching for a copy of this book. I've heard so many amazing things about this book. I was searching forever, and that is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. I've heard this is like adult Spirited Away, and that I say less. I'm good. That's all I needed. Spirited Away is my favorite Ghibli movie, and with adults. And look at that art. Good. Then we have Gear Breakers by Zoe Hana Mikuta. I don't actually know a ton about this. It's been on my TBR for a hot second. Oh, I just realized there's a signed plate in here. It just got 10 times better. Then we also have another new release. This is a YA new release, looks super cute, called Flower Heart by Catherine Bakewell. It looks so cute. It's so pretty. I think this is, they gave me art to go with it too. There's little cute art. So the person who gave this to me, and it is also a signed copy, again, Pango. I think this is an Owl Crate. Are you Owl Crate? What are you? What are you? What are you? Nope, no, it's just a first edition that's signed. Why not? Heck yeah. We have the Adult Fairy Loot subscription box for March, which arrived in April, as they do. And that was The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. Absolutely beautiful copy. Absolutely beautiful copy. It's an absolutely beautiful copy. Look at it, it's printed. It is color printed on and then silver foiling on top of it. It's so pretty. And then there is the more art on the inside. It's so pretty. Fairy Loot, they do good. Be silent, be still, be silent, be still. Name that movie. I bet you can't. It's a really bad teen movie where it's the ugly girl is only ugly until she takes off her glasses. Does that give you a hint? Does that give anybody a hint? It's with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Rachel Lee Cook. Chat knows. All right, we have Disorientation by Elaine. I don't know how to say that next one. Sechu. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to say that name. Somebody please tell me how the correct pronunciation in the comments. I've heard amazing things about this one as well. Then we've got a copy of Black Sun by Rebecca Rowanhorse. Again, heard a lot of fun, great things about this series. Excited. Also very good floppability. Nice floppability. Very important to me. And then we've got a big ass book outlet order here. We've got The Counterclockwise Heart by Brian Ferry. Just gonna go through these quickly. We have What We Harness, oh my god. What We Harvest by Anne Fristat. We have The Ogress and the Orphans by Kelly Barnhill. I am so glad I almost bought this book again yesterday. Woo! I do have that book. All right, we've got Under the Milky Way by Vanessa Barnevald. We've got, again, I Am an Idiot. No, wait, is this the first one? Yeah, no, I'm an idiot. Again, I bought a second book first. And that is The Bootlace Magician, which is a sequel to Circus Mirandus by Cassie Beasley, which I don't own. Then we've got 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston. This was really popular a few years ago. We have a copy of The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, who I met, and he's a fan of my bird. Just FYI, he likes Mambo. Then we have The Lamplighters by Emma Stonex. Very pretty. I'm running out of things to say about everybody. We've got These Fleeting Shadows by Kate Alice Marshall, spooky book. Very popular book also right now is Ring Shout by P. Deli Clark. I'm so sorry, I don't know how to say that name. Someone educate me. We also have Anya and the Dragon by Sophia Pasternak. That is a fun last name. Pasternak? That sounds really, really fun. Okay. We've also got 8 Will Fall by Sarah Harrion. We have The List of Unspeakable Fears by J. Casper Kramer, which is a weird connection because I know her husband because we both lived in Japan. It was Cram in Japan, if you know that channel. That's my friend. That's his wife. I got all the rest of the Mark of the Least series by Kendra Merritt, my other super favorite indie author. So we have The King in the Tower and Other Stories. This is all the short stories that she has written. 3 of them I have already read, but now I have the extra ones I haven't. We have After the Darkness, which is her little novella. And then we have the next 2 big babies, which is A Matter of Blood and Shroud for a Bride, which are less so on the romance side, apparently more on the horror mystery side, according to Kendra. And lastly, another duology we can finish is Soul of Stars by Ashley Poston, which is the sequel to Heart of Iron. And that's it. Back to the rest of the video. Bye. And there you have it. Those are the stats, the reviews, the hauls of April. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Take a look at when next TBR video, I will be posing a question to y'all. about reviews, where you get to participate a little bit. It'll be super fun, and I hope you guys enjoy it and all that jazz. I have nothing else to tell you. Go check out my Ko-fi page though, because the shop is updated. Commissions are open. If you want to commission me to read a book, make a video, make a bookmark for you, like there's a lot of things you can make me do. I would appreciate it a great deal, because I have a lot of conventions that need to be paid for the table coming up soon, so any donations are super helpful for that. And we're going to be doing a lot of bigger projects coming this year that do cost some of them monies, namely dealing with my newest work of Hispacak, coming later this year probably. Cool. All right, I will see you all next time. I'm gonna go now. Bye. As I crossed a bridge of dreams. Mambo! You already had a bath. We're not doing a second bath. Anyway, that's why you guys don't see her on videos anymore. She sees the camera or hears me start talking and is just, I'm out. Don't know why. I thought we were gonna deal with the earthquake. Batteries on all of these are all dying. My God, I thought I charged all my batteries. What happened? Camera. Focus on my face.